Hello, I'm Jacob Hallex with Winthrop Close-Up and the Johnsonian, and we are speaking with Dr. Daniel Mahoney, and he is a candidate for Winthrop's next president. So, first of all, welcome to Winthrop.
Thank you.
Is this your first time visiting?
Yes, it is.
All right. How do you like it so far?
Nice. It's a beautiful campus, and we were just talking about it's a little warmer than I'm used to, but I know a little colder for here. But it's been nice, and I've had the chance to interact with a lot of people in a pretty short period of time. And that's been really enjoyable.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So what would your priorities be as an incoming president?
Some of that would be things I'd find as we go along, but there's certainly things, just as I've talked with people today and before today, frankly, that come up as key priorities. Recruitment and retention, enrollment issues are a big priority, I think, for anybody coming in. Enhancing fundraising efforts is certainly going to be a priority, and it's fairly similar to most public universities that are kind of getting more used to being active in fundraising and haven't traditionally been as active. I think dealing with issues related to faculty and staff morale and improving that, I think, is also an issue that we'd have to address right away. Some of those are some of the big ones. I think also the relationship with the town, so the town-gown relationships and the Knowledge Park initiative. I think some of those things would be things on my plate immediately. But I also want to focus on, when I get here, is really having an inclusive strategic planning process that will help us develop that vision for the future for Winthrop University, and that would be part of probably that first semester or so of work.
Okay. So I'm in the camp with a lot of Winthrop students, a lot of people who arrived here as a freshman in 2012. We've had a different president every single year that we have been at Winthrop. So how do you bring stability to Winthrop?
Well, I think that's part of what I would be doing, is bringing that stability. And one of the things for us, obviously, is, and we talked about this earlier when I talked about my family. When I have kids, and we're not looking to move them a whole lot, so I expect to be here for a while. Expect to establish roots here for a while, and I think that is necessary, and is particularly necessary right now when you've gone through those transitions from one person to another person to another person. Having some stability is critically important, both to morale, for developing that vision going forward, of following through with it. Part of the reason, I've been at Kent State for the last 7 years is there's a lot of things that we developed when I started that now have really moved along to a point where I feel comfortable that the next person coming in will kind of continue with that, and we've really established a lot of those. I don't want to be any place where a lot of people are at places for 2 or 3 years, and I don't know how you get a lot done in higher education in 2 or 3 years. You want to be someplace where you can be for a while and actually have an impact, which is ultimately my goal. But yeah, I'm coming in here not for a short term, but hopefully for a long term. Okay, and
definitely a part of that long term would be fundraising. Could you speak a bit about your ability as a fundraiser?
Yeah, that was one of the things I really worked on as a dean when I got to Kent State. We again did not have a strong tradition in fundraising, so some of it was really going out and developing new ways of reaching out to alumni, finding the right people, hiring the right people to work in advancement with me. I had a really great advancement officer for the last 4 years, and we've had the greatest successes in the history of the college in those last 4 years, and a lot of it was about developing relationships with people, seeing those through to the point of getting a gift, but also following through with stewardship and keeping them active even after they give a gift. A lot of people, the mistake some places make is you get a gift and then you stop that connection, but really if you keep them active, they can not only, sometimes they continue to give in other ways, they give of their time, and sometimes they're helpful in getting more gifts. So I think that part of my philosophy is that, everybody always focuses on the asking people for money. To me, that's the smallest part of the job in fundraising. A lot of it is on the cultivation side, and then on the stewardship side, which means developing relationships and maintaining relationships over the long term. The most successful fundraising universities, that's what they do.
Earlier you were speaking with students about, someone asked about the good, the bad, and the ugly about Winthrop. So what do you think is the good, bad, and the ugly?
Right. I remember what I said earlier. The good was certainly, I think, the positive feelings that people have about the university. I think that was one of the things that, and you hear that from everybody. People really like it here. When you look at the survey results, particularly the NESE surveys of students, very, very positive. Very positive also about the diversity at the institution. So that's a real positive here, but it also comes out in that the students and everyone feels very good about that experience. So that's certainly part of it. I think the bad, and it's not all bad, but I think certainly the financial challenges makes things a little bit more difficult. That's, again, not unique to Winthrop by any means, but there is a relatively low amount of state funding and a lot of it then has to come from other sources. So that's a bit of a challenge, I think. And the ugly, I think, is the things that we've talked about relative to morale issues and just the difficulties of 4 presidents in 4 years type of thing that creates some unique difficulties here. But I think you can come out of all of those on the positive end.
Someone asked earlier about College of Charleston and USC Upstate. They had issues where their common books dealt with LGBTQ issues, and they lost some state funding because of that. You have experience with fighting state governments and academic freedom. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, ours was really about the same-sex partner benefits in Kentucky, and we were the first institution in Kentucky to do that, and that was not well received by everybody, and so there were a lot of challenges. We were just determined, I think, to work through it, and we thought it was the right position to take, and kept with it even despite a lot of the threats. A lot of it didn't come to fruition. We didn't end up having the real difficulties that everybody said that we were going to. So sometimes I think part of what I learned from that is if you stay true to what you believe in and the university community is behind it, which it was, then you can get through a lot of those situations. When they talked about the book reading and losing some of the funding for the books, I mean, a small amount of funding, I don't think that's enough to make you change what you've decided to do. If you've picked that book for a reason, there's probably a reason, and staying with that, I'm sure that's what those institutions decided to do.
All right. Could you speak a little bit to your commitment to transparency in the president's office?
Yeah, and that's certainly been part of my role as dean. We didn't always have a tradition of sharing a lot of information, particularly budgetary information. But that's one of the things as dean that I've done on a pretty regular basis, is sharing with people where we are from a budget standpoint. But it's also about decisions that you make. One of the things that occurred to me, I had a particularly difficult decision one time on a tenure case, and I knew if I just made the decision and didn't tell anybody why I made it, that they would come up with all kinds of reasons why that decision was made, most of which probably would have been wrong. And so part of the transparency is explaining when you make difficult decisions why you made those decisions. Now, sometimes with personnel issues, you can't explain to everybody why you did what you did. That's legal reasons you can't do that, or sometimes for student FERPA rights, you can't explain things. But when you can, then you certainly need to take that opportunity to say, this is what I decided, and this is why I decided. And again, some of the administrators I've worked with that I really respect have kind of modeled that behavior as well.
Okay. What do you think put you here as a finalist?
I'd have to search committee that. I don't know. I think some of it is probably the diversity of my background. The fact that I've been really fortunate to have a wide range of experiences. I mean, I ran a program, I ran a department. I've been involved in the provost office. I spent 4 years there doing really dealing with every aspect of the university. I was in charge of accreditation, so I dealt with all the academic and non-academic units. I've also been dean of a very large college for a long time, and we've had a lot of success in those positions. So it's probably a combination of the experiences I've had and the successes that I've had. And frankly, I know some of it probably relates also to referencing and people that I've worked with that they've talked with.
You mentioned earlier talking about, as you call it, the F word around here, which is football.
Yeah.
So what do you look into? I know that's something that you have a background in, is sports economics. Can you speak to that?
Part of what you want to look at is certainly, first of all, what is the financial impact, and what is it both in the short term and long term. I mean, so it's even like sometimes, and take football off the table for a second, we've started 2 big new programs at Kent State, Public Health and Digital Sciences. We lost money on those for several years, but they're rapidly growing programs which ultimately financially will be the right decisions to make, even if in the short term they were the wrong decisions. So you have to look at the financial impact both long and short term, and not just look sometimes with the short term, which people do. So I think for football, again, it's the same thing. What is the potential impact both long and short term financially? What is the other potential impacts for the university, and do they justify any degree of financial loss? And I think that all of that has to weigh into it. Again, I think that it has to be a really rational, well thought out decision, and you need to share with the board both the pros and cons of making that type of a move, and what it can do for the university, but also what it may cost, financial and otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And of course, also, whenever talking about football, you said that one of your stress relievers is fantasy football.
Yes.
So 2 questions. What's your team name?
Fighting Gobblers.
Fighting Gobblers?
Yes, that's Virginia Tech's other name other than the Hokies is the Fighting Gobblers, and no one knows it, so that's why I use Fighting Gobblers.
Okay, and will you be a part of the intramural football fantasy league?
Would love to. Yeah, I'd love to play. I enjoy doing. Actually, the league I play in right now, it's a no money league. It's more for fun, and it's all sport management faculty members. So we have a lot of fun. I have one of my faculty members in sport management calls me every Monday to talk about what happened on the weekend. But it's a good stress reliever. It's kind of fun for us to do. But yeah, I'd be happy to do. I saw that was one of the real options. I was like, that's great. I can at least do that one.